All right, Akim, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakak Kodash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aqua that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Requai, back here with another quick and as well as always, an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I also I was watching one of the brothers' lesson. I don't know his name. This is the lesson I was actually watching, right? It says here, GMS Watchman. I went off on the Sabbath and willfully shake my head, right? And I watched it and I thought it was a very interesting, edifying lesson. And I kind of wanted to add in my little 2 cents on it too, because what he was saying in regards to confessing faults and trying to essentially keep the laws to the best of your ability, so on and so forth. There are times when we do trip up, and one of the beautiful things I noticed in the lesson was the fact that the brother discussed essentially confessing faults, right? And it really resonated with me as well, as I was watching it, because for me, even I am guilty of this too. I'm not even gonna say in front of you brothers, like I'm I've made these mistakes as well, and I also just wanted to kind of add in my 2 cents and also show the importance of the Hawashai, right? Because really and truly, like the scriptures talk about the earthly tabernacle, right? And this is not to make what's the word I'm looking for? This is not to justify my actions. This is to hopefully also to be cleansed, right? But also confession as well, right? Because like I said, I'm also guilty of this same sentiment here, going off on the Sabbath as well, right? So I sincerely pray and also hope that this lesson is edifying. And so let me not ramble on too much. What's it called? Wisdom of Solomon. Okay, this is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 9, verse 15, and it says, "For the corruptible body presseth down the soul, and earthly tabernacle weigheth down the mind, that museth upon many things," right? So this is the condition of the battle that we're in, and in these particular bodies, because the body essentially wants to go left and then your spirit wants to do right. When you read through Galatians 5, it talks about fruits of the flesh and then also fruits of the spirit, right? And and something I've also been meditating on as well, and I probably will do a lesson on this, is the fact that throughout the course of our weeks and our walk, the Lord would strategically put us in situations where you can actually acquire fruits of the spirit, acquire to essentially exemplify Yahushai, right? And something I always meditate on, throughout my week, right? I always write down and jot down some fruits of the spirit, right? But we're in the flesh, right? And the flesh, and then we're in this kingdom as well. And in this kingdom, and there's a brother that in my camp that brought this out last week. I thought it was a very excellent point, and he said, in this kingdom, essentially, you have there's no discipline when it comes to the things of the flesh, right? So if it's women, drugs, not condoning drugs, I'm just saying, food, drink, alcohol, all these different pleasures, all swirling around you, all in excess. It's a society of opulence and excess, and the scriptures talk about that. I think in Sirach 37, right? In regards to be not insatiable with many meats, and there's a lot of philosophies as well. There's a lot of stuff out here, right? That keep you, instead of keeping you, it keeps you drunk, right? It doesn't keep you sober and sharp in the mind, right? So, long story, Short, the point really is that this is the condition of the battle in this corruptible body, not to justify, but to also, you know, make improvements, right? Because I'm personally guilty of it as well. I just wanted to get that word museth. Let's see, muse, and the etymology. I'm just gonna read it off my other phones. Just bear with me on this. Let's see. So muse in the etymology, it says to reflect, ponder, meditate, to be absorbed in thought. It says to ponder, to dream, wonder, loiter, waste time, which is of uncertain origin. It says to stand in one's nose in the air. It says, what else? See if there's any more anywhere else. Hold on. An instant or period of reflection. Okay, so Old French, it says musée, so essentially to meditate or waste time. So that's where you get the word meditate, right? So essentially, it causes us to meditate, upon many things, right? Things that, the flesh kind of wants, and the flesh always wants, right? But, in this truth, something I've also, learned is to essentially implement discipline in regards to multiple facets. Essentially, the discipline trickles into multiple facets of your life, right? So, but, we have those moments where we, mess up, because even Apostle Paul, struggled with these two things. When you read Romans, the 7th chapter, right? And, the Apostle Paul was a great man. And even he in himself, he said, as a matter of fact, let me get it. Just bear with me on this. I thought it was a beautiful statement. Just bear with me on this. Romans 7. In regards to the corruptible body, it says, Romans 7 verse 24, and it says, O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? Verse 25, it says, I thank the Most High Yahweh through Yahushua HaMashiach our Lord. So then with my mind I myself serve the law of the Most High Yahweh, but with the flesh, the law of sin, right? So, we're in a situation where, we get caught up into doing things with the flesh that is essentially displeasing to the Lord, right? When you think about a good example of this is essentially when King David transgressed. One of his first transgressions was, he noticed a woman bathing, and then, essentially he ended up laying with that woman, Bathsheba, right? And he had a lot of substance when you really think about that account. And, and at the end of the chapter, I don't know which chapter it is in Second Samuel, but at the end of the chapter, what happens, the Lord, expressed his deep displeasure, in what King David had done, right? Because, he had laid with a woman that already had a man, right? So, let's continue. Another point I noticed in this verse 25 here, it says, I thank the Lord, Yahushua HaMashiach, right? So I thought that was really beautiful because, with his, as a matter of fact, let me get it. Just bear with me on this. Let me see. Isaiah 53 verse, I'll start at verse 4. The point is in verse 5. It says, let's see. It says, surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of the Most High, and afflicted. For he was wounded for our transgressions, and he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed, right? So it's going into Yahushua's suffering, and essentially he took on all that, that heavy burden, and essentially he became, and reconciled us back to the Heavenly Father, right? So, through his sacrifice, essentially, it's so heavy, and it's so, essentially, like it's a symbol of, for us, like, you just have to remember that sacrifice, right? We can't, that sacrifice is very, very important. It's very, it gives us an opportunity to do better, essentially, right? Because it's grace. Now we don't use the grace in a, like it says in Galatians, we don't use the grace. We've been called onto liberty, to roughly paraphrase, right? But it gives us an opportunity of grace to be able to, essentially, collect fruits of the Spirit, right? So things that we can do and exemplify Yahushua and the way he conducted himself, to be able to be remembered, especially in times to come, right? Because through the technicality of the law, we can't be saved by that. We establish the law, yes, but at the same time, there's no flesh shall be justified, to roughly paraphrase that as well. So it says, I'll read verse 5 again, and it says, but he was wounded for our transgressions, and he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement, of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed, right? So with his, the stripes that he took, the chastisement that he took, we are healed through that, right? And this is a ministry of healing, right? Cleansing ourselves of these faults, and actually, developing and improving, right? Not just staying the way we were, right? Let's see. Let's get Psalms. Okay, this is Psalms 19, verse 12, and it says, I read it in the NLT. It says, how can I know all the sins lurking in my heart or in my mind? Cleanse me of these hidden faults, right? So we all have these faults that we're trying to, cleanse ourselves from, right? All these, we might get wicked thoughts, and we might get what's it called? Like, yes, we go off sometimes. We're not saying that we're perfect, but I'm not to justify going off, but at the same time, we get these things because we're still in the flesh. This is still part of the condition of the battle, right? It says, I'll read it again. It says, cleanse me from these hidden faults, right? And it's so important. It talks about cleansing, and the scriptures say that how should a young man cleanse his way is by essentially taking heed to thy word, to roughly paraphrase, right? So as a matter of fact, let me go to the New Testament. This is this is a story I really do like. Because it mentioned the word cleanse. So this is Mark chapter 5, verse 25, and it says, in the NLT, it says, a woman in the crowd had suffered for 12 years with constant bleeding. She had suffered a great deal from many doctors, and over the years she spent everything she had to them, but she had gotten no better. In fact, she had gotten worse. what's beautiful about this scripture is that, we can be likened unto this same woman as well, right? Not in a physical sense, but also in a spiritual sense. Because, like, for myself, like, okay, I've gone to school, trying to essentially, you know, get some, understanding and get some and try to make yourself somebody, right? And you spend all this money going to these things and doing these particular things, right? And it caused you it didn't heal you, to roughly paraphrase. Like the scriptures talk about, why spend money for which is not bread and your labor that satisfies not, right? So we end up doing a lot of these carnal things to essentially fill a hole that essentially is spiritual, right? It says, then, so it says, verse 27, she had heard about Yahushua, so she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his robe. For she thought to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I will be healed. Immediately, the bleeding stopped, and she could feel in her body that she had been healed of her terrible condition. Yahushua realized at once that healing power had gone out of him, so he turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my robe?" Yahushua speaking. His disciples said to him, "Look at the crowd pressing around you. How can you ask who touched me?" But he kept looking around to see no one had done it. To see who had done it, excuse me. Verse 33, then the frightened woman trembled at the realization of what had happened to her, came and fell on her knees in front of him and told him what she had done. She said to her, excuse me, Yahushua speaking, "Daughter, your faith hath made you well. Go in peace. Your suffering is over," right? And that's beautiful, because if you really think of it, that's the same thing, we're doing as well, by essentially, by partaking in the ministry and learning the scriptures and even applying them as well, to our lives as well. That's how more and more we keep our minds in the scriptures. That's how we become healed of these different faults, right? They're no longer essentially a I don't want to say a stumbling block. We do fall here and there sometimes, but this is something for us to actually be cleansed from, right? Because we're constantly diving into this word, right? That's the real baptism, right? I guess I'll what's that in Ephesians? It says Ephesians 5:26, and it says that he might sanctify it and cleanse it by the washing of the water by the word, right? So that's the real baptism of what actually keeps us clean, keeps us separate, keeps us holy, right? So anyways, I didn't go through all the precepts I had on the screen, but I sincerely pray that also this lesson was edifying as well, because I listened to the lesson, and honestly, I can't speak volumes enough of how even myself have gone through that, right? And I'm sure there's other brothers and sisters that have gone through this as well, and I sincerely pray it's also comforting, but we continue to essentially kind of touch that rope, So I'll leave it there, but I pray and sincerely again that this lesson was edifying. I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. And until next time, I say Shalom.